Havoc Base. This is Viking 2 Actual. We are taking effective fire from the ridge. We are pinned. Where is that KS? Static hissed through the earpiece, harsh and indifferent against the screaming wind of the Syrian Badia. Viking 2, this is Havoc. Air support is negative. I repeat, negative. All assets are scrubbed. You are on your own. Say again? We have 30 hostiles maneuvering on our flank. We need a clearing run. Danger close, now. Negative, Viking. You are black on the grid. Out. The link died. A heavy silence followed, heavier than the mortar round that had just pulverized the rock face 3 meters to the left. Chief Warrant Officer Kaia Thorne didn't scream. She didn't curse. She just exhaled, watching her breath mist against the scope's rubber eye cup. The dust from the mortar impact settled on her ghillie suit like a funeral shroud. Impact 29. A bullet chipped the limestone beside her cheek. Impact 30. Dirt sprayed into her ear. Thorne! Miller's voice cracked over the comms, breathless, terrified. They're rushing the ravine. If you don't drop that DSHK gunner, we're meat. Kaia adjusted the elevation turret. 2 clicks up, 1 click left for the crosswind. Her heart rate was a steady 45 beats per minute, an unnatural calm amidst the apocalypse. She wasn't fighting for a flag anymore. She was fighting the math. Impact 37. A round skipped off her rifle's bipod leg, sending a jarring vibration through her skeleton. She didn't flinch. She squeezed the trigger between heartbeats. X hours earlier, the desert didn't smell like sand. It smelled like ancient dust and sulfur, a dry rot that coated the back of the throat and made water taste like copper. Kaia Thorne lay motionless on the limestone ridge. She had been part of the geology for 6 hours. Her limbs were heavy, blood pooling in her lower extremities, a dull ache that she acknowledged and then compartmentalized into a box labeled Ignore. Through the lens of her spotting scope, the valley floor shimmered in the heat haze. The target building was a nondescript compound, mud brick walls reinforced with modern rebar, a scar on the landscape. Status, whispered a voice in her earpiece. It was Ljungberg, Viking leader. He was prone 10 meters behind her, hidden in the scrub. Visual on 3 tangos. Patrol pattern is lazy. They aren't expecting company, Kaia replied, her voice barely a vibration in her throat mic. She didn't look back. In this world, looking away from the scope was a dereliction of duty. Copy. HVT arrival time? Intelligence said 1400, it's 1415. Maybe he got cold feet. Or maybe the intel is trash, Kaia muttered. Again. She shifted her weight microscopically. The gravel bit into her elbows. Being a woman in a SEAL platoon meant she had to be invisible in 2 ways. Blend into the terrain and blend into the brotherhood. Speak only when necessary. Shoot better than everyone else. Never complain about the weight of the ruck. Movement, Kaia said, her tone flattening. North Road, 2 vehicles, black SUVs. That's not local, Ljungberg noted. Locals drive Toyotas. Kaia dialed the magnification up. The SUVs were armored, heavy suspension, run-flat tires. This wasn't a tribal warlord meeting. This was a corporate transaction. Viking 1, I have eyes on the package, Kaia relayed. The lead SUV stopped. The doors opened. Men stepped out, not in flowing robes, but in tan tactical pants and polo shirts. They moved with the crisp economy of professionals. They checked their sectors. They held their suppressed M4s at the low ready. Identify, Ljungberg ordered. Are those insurgents? Kaia focused on the man stepping out of the rear seat. He was Western, clean-shaven, sunglasses. He carried a briefcase like it was a nuclear football. Negative, Kaia said, a cold knot tightening in her stomach. Gear is U.S. manufacture. Plate carriers, high-cut helmets. Sir, these look like contractors. Contractors? Out here? They're shaking hands with the target, Kaia narrated. The exchange is happening. Command said we were hitting a terrorist cell buying chemical precursors. Why are Americans selling it to them? Ljungberg's voice lost its tactical cool for a fraction of a second. Do we have a change in ROE? Kaia asked. The rules of engagement were strict. Eliminate the threat. Secure the HVT. But if the threat was American citizens. Stand by, I'm raising havoc. Kaia watched through the crosshairs. The Western man in the suit was laughing. He clapped the insurgent leader on the shoulder. It was a friendly meeting, a business deal. Havoc is stalling, Ljungberg hissed after a minute. They're asking for confirmation of visual. They have the drone feed, Ljungberg. They see exactly what we see. They want us to wait. Kaia saw the insurgent point toward the ridge, not directly at them, but generally in their direction. One of the tactical contractors raised binoculars. They're scanning, Kaia warned. We're burning daylight. If we don't hit them now, the deal goes through and that briefcase disappears. Hold fire. Sir, the contractor is looking right at my sector. The glare off the scope. I said hold fire! Crack. The sound wasn't a gunshot. It was the sharp snap of a bullet passing supersonic inches above Kaia's head. The contractor with the binoculars wasn't looking. He was shooting. Compromised! Kaia yelled, abandoning the whisper. Taking fire! The valley floor erupted. The lazy patrol dropped into cover instantly. Heavy machine gun fire from the compound tore into the ridge, chewing up the rock face. Engage! Engage! Ljungberg shouted. Kaia settled the crosshairs on the contractor who had fired. He was moving toward the SUV, a difficult shot. Moving. Target. 400 meters. Downhill angle. She didn't think about politics. She didn't think about why Americans were shooting at her. She exhaled, finding the pause between heartbeats. She squeezed. The contractor's head snapped back. Pink mist vaporized in the dry air. He dropped. Splash one, Kaia stated, cycling the bolt. Havoc! Ljungberg was screaming into the radio. We are engaged. Troops in contact. Requesting immediate CAS at grid outcome. Kaia lined up her second shot, but as she scanned the chaos, she saw the man with the briefcase look up. He wasn't running. He was smiling. He tapped his earpiece, looking directly at the ridge as if listening to a joke. Why is he smiling? And then the radio crackled with the message that would doom them all. Viking 2, this is Havoc. Air support is negative. Violence of action! Ljungberg roared over the comms, his voice cutting through the cacophony of incoming fire. Push! Push! We take the building or we die on this rock! It was a suicide call, and they all knew it. Staying on the ridge meant getting picked apart by the DSHK heavy machine gun churning up the limestone. The only cover was inside the enemy's fortress. Kaia slammed a fresh magazine into the magwell of her Barrett MRAD. 10 rounds. Make them count. Moving. Miller and Davis, the team's breachers, vaulted over the ridgeline, sliding down the loose scree like avalanches in human form. Kaia didn't move. She was the anchor. If she panicked, they died. She focused on the heavy gunner in the technical truck 400 meters down. The muzzle flash was a consistent strobe light. Breath, pause, squeeze. The rifle kicked into her shoulder, a brutal shove she had grown to love. Down in the valley, the gunner's torso turned into red mist. The heavy machine gun fell silent. Gun down, she announced, her voice devoid of emotion. Displacing. She collapsed the bipod, slung the 20-pound rifle across her back, and drew her Mk-18 carbine. Then she threw herself off the ledge, The descent was a controlled fall. Shale sliced into her palms. Bullets snapped the air around her, angry hornets buzzing inches from her ears. These weren't erratic sprays of AK-47 fire. This was suppressed, accurate, single-shot fire. The contractors were bracketing them, shifting fire sectors with disciplined efficiency. They fight like us, Kaia realized, a chill running deeper than the adrenaline. Maybe better. She hit the valley floor, rolling to absorb the impact, and sprinted toward the mud brick wall where Miller was prepping a breaching charge. The air here was thick with dust and the acrid metallic taste of cordite. "Charge set!" Miller yelled, pressing his body flat against the wall. "Fire in the hole!" The explosion didn't just blow the door, it sucked the oxygen out of the air. The concussion wave punched Kaia in the chest. Before the debris settled, the SEALs were inside. Kaia followed in the stack, the world narrowing down to the view through her holographic sight. Room clear. Hallway. Contact front. Muzzle flashes erupted from a doorway on the left. The hallway turned into a kill zone. The sound was deafening, magnified by the concrete walls. Kaia saw Davis take a round to his plate carrier. He stumbled but kept firing, his training overriding the physics of the impact. Kaia peeled right, checking a side room. Empty, save for a table covered in maps. She didn't look at them. Her job was the rear guard. "HVT is in the main accumulation room," Ljungberg shouted, moving past her. "Flash out!" He tossed a flashbang. Bang! Ljungberg kicked the door and swung in. Then everything went wrong. There was no return fire. Just a dull, wet thud. Ljungberg spun back into the hallway, his hands clutching his neck. Blood didn't drip. It sprayed, jetting out between his gloved fingers in a rhythmic, arterial bright red that painted the wall behind him. "Man down!" Kaia screamed, abandoning her sector. She grabbed Ljungberg by the drag handle of his vest, hauling him back as bullets chewed up the doorframe where he had just been. "Medical. I need pressure here." Miller was suppressing the room, firing blindly to keep the enemy heads down. Davis was on Ljungberg in a second, ripping open a medkit. "It's the carotid," Davis hissed, his eyes wide. "Jesus, there's so much blood!" Ljungberg's eyes were losing focus. He tried to speak, but only a gurgle of pink froth bubbled past his lips. He gripped Kaia's wrist, his grip strength fading rapidly. He stared at her, not with fear, but with a terrifying, urgent realization. He tapped his radio. Then he went limp. "He's gone," Davis said, his voice trembling. "Skipper is gone." "Secure the room," Kaia said. Her voice sounded alien to her own ears. Cold. Sharp. "Davis, get off him! Miller, frag the room. Now!" "But do it!" Kaia barked. Miller pulled a frag grenade pin and bowled it into the room. The explosion shook dust from the ceiling. Kaia stepped over Ljungberg's body. She didn't look down. She couldn't. If she looked at the dead eyes of the man who had vouched for her to join this team, she would break. And broken things didn't survive in the desert. She raised her weapon and entered the smoke-filled room. The HVT, the man in the suit, was sitting behind a heavy oak desk. He wasn't armed. He wasn't hiding. He was calmly wiping dust off his sunglasses with a silk handkerchief. Two dead contractors lay near the window, shredded by the frag grenade. He looked up at Kaia, unimpressed by the muzzle of the MK-18 pointed at his face. "You're late," the man said. His accent was American. "Ivy League. And you made a mess of my security detail." "On your knees," Kaia ordered, stepping closer. "Hands behind your head." "Chief Warrant Officer Thorne, isn't it?" the man asked softly. Kaia froze. Her finger tightened on the trigger. "How do you know my name?" I know all of you, he smiled, a predator showing teeth. Did you really think you could just call for a helicopter and fly home? Look at your radio, Kaia. Kaia glanced at the comms unit on her chest. The light wasn't flashing green. It wasn't even searching. It was dead. They didn't just deny air support, the man said, standing up slowly. They burned the frequency. You're not a rescue team anymore, Miss Thorne. You're a loose end. Outside, the sound of heavy engines grew louder. Not SUVs, APCs, reinforcements. Kaia looked at the dead body of Ljungberg in the hallway, then back at the man who held their death warrants in his briefcase. She realized with a sinking horror that the mission hadn't failed. It was working exactly as designed. Miller, Kaia whispered, staring into the HVT's eyes. How much ammo do we have left? 2 mags each. Maybe 3. And the claymores? 2. Kaia keyed her mic, knowing no one at HQ would answer. Set them up at the door, she said. We're not leaving. The floor vibrated. It wasn't an earthquake. It was the rhythmic, grinding thrum of diesel engines and heavy tracks chewing up the hard-pan soil outside. BTR-80s, Davis said, pressing his ear against the cracked plaster of the wall. His face was pale, smeared with Ljungberg's blood. At least 2 of them. 30 Mike cannons. If they open up on this mud shack, we're going to be breathing brick dust until we suffocate. Get off the wall, Kaia ordered, her voice tight. She was kneeling beside the Harris PRC-117G radio. The heavy unit pulled from Ljungberg's ruck. Miller, watch the hallway. Anything that moves and isn't us, you put 2 rounds in it. Roger, Miller croaked. He was shaking. He had his weapon trained on the door, but his eyes kept darting to the HVT sitting calmly in the corner. The HVT, who Kaia now knew was named Sterling, crossed his legs. He watched Kaia fiddle with the radio handset like a scientist observing a rat in a maze. You're wasting your battery, Chief, Sterling said. You think the Pentagon is going to answer? They're the ones who sent the deletion code. Shut up, Kaia snapped. She didn't look at him. She stared at the small green LCD screen on the radio. Searching. No sync. Havoc Base, this is Viking 2, emergency traffic. We have a KIA, package secured, requesting immediate extraction. Over. Static. Not the organic crackle of atmospheric interference, but the digital hiss of a dead channel. Kaia switched to the fallback frequency, then the tertiary, then the emergency global distress net. No sync. Come on, she whispered, her fingers flying over the keypad. She checked the connection to the SATCOM antenna she'd routed through the window. The angle was perfect. The sky was clear. There was no reason for a signal drop. Unless... She navigated into the system settings, checking the ComSec, Communications Security, menu. Her stomach dropped, a sensation worse than the free fall of a halo jump. The display read, zeroized. No, Kaia breathed. What? Davis asked, looking over from the window. What is it? The crypto keys, Kaia said, staring at the screen in horror. They're gone. The radio has been wiped. It's a brick. Maybe the blast, Davis started. Blast doesn't wipe software, Davis. Kaia stood up, the useless handset dangling from her hand. Someone sent a remote kill command to our devices. We are black on the grid. We don't exist anymore. Sterling chuckled. It was a dry, rasping sound. I told you, this is a cleanup operation. You were the janitors, and now someone is coming to take out the trash. Miller spun around, aiming his rifle at Sterling's chest. I will blow your head off right now. Give me one reason not to. Miller, stand down, Kaia barked. She stepped between them, pushing Miller's barrel down. "He wants you to kill him. If he dies, we have no leverage. He is the only shield we have against those APCs outside." "They don't care about me," Sterling said, his smile fading into something colder. "The men outside are Ereshkigal group. They get paid double if there are no witnesses, including me." Boom. A massive impact shook the building. Dust rained down from the ceiling beams. The BTRs had started firing. The 30mm rounds weren't penetrating the thick main walls yet, but they were stripping away the cover, layer by layer. "They're probing," Kaia analyzed, forcing her brain to switch from panic to tactics. "Testing the structure." "What do we do?" Davis asked. He looked young, too young. "Kaia, we can't fight armor with rifles." Kaia looked at the tactical map on the table, the one the enemy had been using. She traced a line with her dirty fingernail. "We can't stay here. They'll level the building as soon as the sun goes down," Kaia said. "We have to move." "Move where?" Miller asked, gesturing to the window where tracers were already zipper-stitching the air. "It's open desert for 60 miles. Kaia looked at Sterling. "You have a vehicle?" "Had," Sterling corrected. "Your sniper fire put a 338 Lapua Magnum round through the engine block of my lead SUV. The other one is likely disabled by now." Kaia grabbed Sterling by the collar of his expensive suit and slammed him against the wall. "You have an exfil plan. Mercenaries always have a back door. Where is it?" Sterling stared at her. He saw the desperation, but he also saw the lethal intent. He realized this woman wasn't playing by the standard rules of engagement anymore. "There's a dry riverbed," Sterling gasped. 3 clicks east, old smuggling route. The limestone walls mask thermal signatures. If we can get there, the drone can't track us." 3 clicks, Davis said, despairing. "Through that?" Kaia released Sterling. She picked up the dead radio and smashed it against the floor, shattering the casing so it couldn't be used by the enemy. "We wait for the sun to drop," Kaia commanded. "We rig the bodies with the claymores. We leave a surprise for whoever comes through that door." "And then?" Miller asked. Kaia checked the load in her magazine. 28 rounds. "And then we run the gauntlet." Another explosion rocked the compound, closer this time. The wall in the hallway collapsed, burying Ljungberg's body under a pile of rubble. They were officially alone. No air support, no extraction, no commander. Just 3 ghosts and a prisoner, waiting for the dark. The sunset wasn't beautiful. It was a bruise spreading across the western sky, purple and angry, filtered through the haze of pulverized concrete. "They're stacking up!" Miller yelled from the eastern window. He fired 2 rapid shots, then ducked as a burst of machine gun fire shredded the window frame, showering him in splinters. 6 packs, moving up the blind side. They're using the smoke for cover. Kaia lay prone on a pile of rubble in what used to be the kitchen. She had the Barrett MRAD shouldered. Firing a .338 Lapua Magnum inside a closed room was tactically ill-advised. The overpressure alone could rupture eardrums and kick up enough dust to blind them all. But she didn't have a choice. The MK-8 wouldn't punch through the cover the mercenaries were using. "Davis, watch the rear," Kaia ordered. "Don't let them flank us." "I'm on it," Davis screamed back. He looked terrified, his eyes too wide, breathing too fast. He was hyperventilating. Kaia focused. The thermal scope cut through the dust. White-hot silhouettes moved behind the mud wall 50 meters out. Impact 41. A grenade launcher round thumped against the roof, blowing a hole in the ceiling. Debris rained down on Sterling, who was curled in a fetal ball under the heavy oak desk. "They're prepping for a breach," Kaia muttered. She tracked a heat signature moving to the corner of the compound wall. A breacher. She exhaled. The world slowed down. Boom. The rifle roared like a cannon in the confined space. The concussion hit them all like a physical slap. Through the scope, Kaia saw the breacher spin violently as the heavy round punched through the mud brick and took his arm off at the shoulder. "Hit!" Miller cheered, desperate for a win. "Displacing!" Kaia rolled away from her position just as the BTR-80 outside traversed its turret. Thud, 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 thud. High explosive rounds chewed through the kitchen wall, obliterating the spot where Kaia had been lying 2 seconds ago. The precision was terrifying. They knew exactly where she was. Kaia crawled to the hallway, coughing up gray dust. She grabbed Davis by the shoulder. "Focus! Davis, look at me! Check your Claymore clacker. Is it armed?" Davis fumbled with the M57 firing device. "Safety. Off. Circuit is good. Wait for my command. We only get one chance to blow that door." The shooting stopped abruptly. The silence was worse than the noise. It was the inhalation before the scream. "Why did they stop?" Miller whispered. Kaia listened. She heard the crunch of boots on gravel. Close. Right outside the main entrance. "They think we're suppressed," Kaia whispered. "They think we're heads down, bleeding out." She looked at the pattern of holes in the walls. Something clicked in her brain, the cold, analytical part that processed ballistics and geometry. The BTR rounds had decimated the kitchen, north, and the bedroom, west. But the hallway leading to the back exit, east, was untouched. Not a single bullet hole. "They aren't trying to pin us," Kaia realized with a jolt of horror. "They're hurting us." "They want us to run," Kaia hissed to Miller. "They're leaving the back door open." "Then we take it," Miller said. "We go east, toward the riverbed like Sterling said." "No." Kaia grabbed his vest. "If they want us to go east, it's because they have something waiting for us in the east. A sniper team, another vehicle, a kill box. We can't stay here, Kaia. They'll bring the roof down." "Breach imminent," Davis yelled. Shadows darkened the main doorway. A flashbang canister clattered across the floor, spinning toward them. "Eyes!" Kaia screamed, squeezing her eyes shut and covering her ears. Bang! The flash was blinding even through her eyelids. The ringing in her ears was absolute. But she felt the vibration of boots hitting the floor. "Do it, Davis! Blow it!" Kaia roared, though she couldn't hear her own voice. Davis squeezed the clacker. The front entrance, rigged with 2 M18A1 Claymore mines facing inward, vaporized. 700 steel ball bearings screamed through the fatal funnel at 1,200 meters per second. The scream of the incoming assault team was cut short, replaced by the wet, shredding sound of meat hitting a grinder. The blast wave knocked Kaia backward into Sterling. Dust billowed, thick and choking. "Move!" Kaia scrambled up, grabbing Sterling. "We're not going east. We're going south, through the wall." "There's no door south," Miller yelled, coughing violently. "Make one." Kaia pointed her Barrett at the weakened southern wall, the mud bricks already cracked by the earlier mortar fire. She fired 3 rounds in rapid succession into the structural stress points. Boom, boom, boom. The wall groaned and crumbled, creating a jagged hole leading into a narrow alleyway, the opposite direction of where the enemy wanted them to go. "Go, go, go!" Miller shoved Sterling through the hole. Davis followed, limping. Kaia stayed back for 1 second, pulling the pin on a smoke grenade and dropping it on the bodies of the mercenaries in the doorway. She dove through the hole just as the BTR's cannon opened up again, tearing the rest of the building apart. They tumbled into the alleyway, the night air cool against their sweating skin. They were alive. South? Sterling gasped, struggling to keep up. The riverbed is east. You're leading us into the open desert. Kaia checked her compass. We're going off script, Sterling. If we do what they expect, we die. You're crazy, Sterling hissed. I'm alive, Kaia corrected, checking her 6. The building behind them collapsed in a cloud of dust, burying the trap they had just escaped. But as they sprinted into the darkening dunes, Kaia felt a prickle on the back of her neck, the sensation of being watched. The enemy had stopped firing. They weren't panicking. They were adjusting. Impact 42. She hadn't heard the shot, but she saw the puff of sand kick up near her boot. Sniper! Kaia dove, tackling Sterling. Get down! They lay flat in the sand. The shot had come from the east, from the riverbed. See? Kaia whispered to Sterling, her voice trembling with adrenaline. They were waiting for us. She crawled forward, dragging her heavy rifle. The game had changed. They weren't defending a fortress anymore. They were rabbits in a moonscape, and the wolves had night vision. The world through white phosphor night vision goggles, NVGs, was a ghostly, spectral realm. Unlike the old green-tinted tubes, the modern L3 Harris tubes painted the desert in shades of pale blue and icy white. It made the blood on Davis's leg look like black tar. Keep the dispersion, Kaia whispered, her voice barely audible over the crunch of sand. 5 meters. Don't bunch up. She scanned the horizon. Through the tubes, the stars were blindingly bright, a canopy of static. But she wasn't looking at the sky. She was looking for the telltale strobe of an IR beacon or the thermal signature of a vehicle engine. They had been walking for an hour. The adrenaline from the compound breach had faded, replaced by the crushing weight of their gear. Kaia carried the Barrett MRAD, her carbine, and half the ammo from Ljungberg's kit. Her shoulders burned. I need a halt, Davis gasped. He stumbled, falling to one knee. The sound was amplified in Kaia's headset like a thunderclap. No halts, Kaia hissed, grabbing his harness and hauling him up. You stop, you seize up. You seize up, you die. He's slowing us down, Chief, Sterling said from behind. The prisoner's hands were zip-tied, but he moved with surprising ease. Basic combat calculus. The herd only moves as fast as its slowest member. Shut up, Sterling, Miller growled, walking rear guard. He swept his rifle back and forth, the PEQ-15 infrared laser dancing across the dunes like an invisible lightsaber, visible only to them and anyone else with NVGs. Turn that laser off, Miller, Kaia ordered. If they have tubes, you're waving a giant glow stick saying, "Here we are." Miller clicked off the PEQ. The desert plunged back into blue-gray obscurity. You know, Kaia, Sterling continued, his voice smooth, unaffected by the exertion. This reminds me of your file. The incident in Mosul, 2019? Kaia stiffened. She kept walking, but her grip on the rifle tightened. You had a shot on a spotter, Sterling narrated, as if reading a bedtime story. A 12-year-old boy with a cell phone. You hesitated. You saw a child. The enemy saw a target designator. And because you didn't take the shot, a mortar team dropped a round right on top of your partner. What was his name? Sergeant Reyes. Another word, Kaia said, stopping and turning to face him. The tubes made her eyes look like empty, glowing sockets. And I leave you here. You won't, Sterling smiled. In the monochrome view of the NVGs, his teeth looked jagged. You're trying to save everyone this time to make up for Reyes. That's your fatal flaw, Kaia. You think you can cheat the math? Fume. A distant sound, like a cork popping from a giant bottle. Kaia looked up instantly. Hit the dirt! She tackled Davis just as the sky split open. A 60mm illumination mortar round ignited overhead, 1,000,000 candle power of burning magnesium suspended under a parachute. The night vanished. The desert was flooded with harsh, wavering, artificial daylight. Eyes! Kaia screamed, ripping her goggles up. The sudden transition from sensitive light amplification to blinding magnesium flare would wash out their vision for seconds. They lay flat in the depression of a dune. The shadows stretched long and erratic as the flare drifted down. They're scanning, Kaia whispered, pressing her face into the sand. Don't move a muscle, reptilian brain. Be a rock. The hum of an engine drifted on the wind. Close. Miller, Kaia murmured. Sector scan. Miller raised his head slowly. I see them. Technical. 800 meters. Northeast. They're bounding. They don't see us yet, Kaia said. The flare creates deep shadows. As long as we stay in the negative space, we're invisible. Davis is bleeding out, Miller reported. The tourniquet slipped when he fell. He's leaving a trail, Kaia. Kaia looked at Davis. He was pale, sweating profusely. The sand beneath his leg was dark wet. Sterling leaned in, his mouth close to Kaia's ear. The math, Kaia. He can't make the walk. If you carry him, the patrol catches us in 20 minutes. If you leave him, we move fast enough to hit the salt flats. Kaia looked at the flare drifting lower, sizzling as it neared the ground. The light was dying. The darkness would rush back in seconds. She had a choice. The choice she failed to make in Mosul. Miller, Kaia said, her voice hollow. Yeah? Give me your morphine. Kaia? Miller's voice cracked. We aren't leaving him. Give me the morphine! Miller handed over the auto-injector. Kaia jammed it into Davis's thigh. He groaned, his eyes fluttering. We aren't leaving him, Kaia repeated, glaring at Sterling. We're carrying him. Fireman's carry. Switch off every click. That's suicide. Sterling laughed softly. Miller, take the first leg. I'll take the heavy weapons. Move, now, while the flare is dying. They scrambled up. Miller hoisted the semi-conscious Davis onto his shoulders. Kaia took Miller's pack and slung it over her front, balancing the massive Barrett on her back. The weight was crushing. Her knees buckled, then locked. The flare hit the ground and extinguished. Darkness slammed back into them. Kaia flipped her NVGs back down. The world returned to blue phosphorescence. Move, she commanded. They trudged forward. But as Kaia fell into the rearguard position, watching their six, she noticed something. Sterling was walking with his hands clasped behind his back, perfectly rhythmic, but his fingers were moving. She zoomed in with her monocular. He wasn't just fidgeting. He was twisting a small button on his cufflink. Click, click, pause, click. It wasn't a nervous tick. It was a pattern. He wasn't signaling the patrol with a light. He was signaling them with a frequency. Kaia lunged forward, grabbing Sterling's wrist and twisting it violently. She ripped the cufflink off his expensive shirt. Hey! Sterling shouted. Kaia smashed the cufflink with the butt of her pistol. Inside the crushed gold casing, a tiny red LED died. A tracker, she realized, cold fury washing over her. You've been broadcasting our position this whole time. Passive RFID, Sterling sneered, dropping the pretense of fear. Range is limited, but enough for the drone overhead to triangulate us. Kaia looked up at the empty, star-filled sky. She couldn't see it, but she knew it was there. A predator or a reaper, circling like a vulture at 20,000 feet. They aren't just hunting us with trucks, Kaia said, the realization settling like lead in her stomach. They're waiting for us to group up. For what? Miller asked, straining under Davis's weight. For a Hellfire missile, Kaia said. Scatter! Get away from Davis! Separate, now! There is no sound more distinct than the arrival of a Hellfire missile. It doesn't scream like artillery. It hisses, a terrifying, rapid intake of breath, like a giant sucking the air out of the sky. Scatter! Kaia screamed, shoving Sterling so hard he flew face first into the sand. She didn't run. There was no point running from a munition that traveled at Mach 1.3. She curled into the fetal position, mouth open to equalize the pressure, hands over her ears. Crack, boom. The world turned white. The ground didn't just shake, it liquefied. A shockwave of superheated sand and shrapnel lifted Kaia off the ground and slammed her back down 3 meters away. For 10 seconds, there was no sound, only a high-pitched tinnitus drill boring into her brain. Kaia gasped, inhaling dust. She clawed at the sand, forcing her eyes open. Her night vision goggles were dead, fried by the flash. She ripped them off her helmet and blinked into the gloom. Sound off, she rasped. Her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Miller, Davis! I'm good. Miller's voice groaned from the left. He was coughing violently. Davis! Davis! Kaia scrambled over the dune. The missile had impacted 20 meters from their center. A crater smoked in the moonlight, the sand fused into glass around the edges. Davis was lying near the rim. He wasn't moving. Medic! Kaia yelled, sliding down the crater wall to reach him. She checked for a pulse, strong but erratic. He was unconscious, bleeding from his ears, blast overpressure. But he was alive. The pack, Miller whispered, staring at the crater. Kaia looked. The rucksack Miller had been carrying, the one with the extra ammo, the medical supplies, and the water, was gone. Vaporized. Only a few shredded straps of nylon remained. They missed, Sterling said. He was sitting up, dusting sand off his suit as if he'd just tripped on a curb. A proximity fuse. They wanted to disable, not destroy. They want the asset intact. Miller lunged. He grabbed Sterling by the throat and slammed him into the sand. You called that in! You almost killed us! Miller! Kaia grabbed Miller's arm. Stop! He's dead weight, Kaia. We have no water. We have a casualty. And this suit-wearing snake just tried to nuke us. Miller pulled his knife. I cut his throat. We move faster. If he dies, we don't have a bargaining chip, Kaia said, her voice hard as steel. And if we don't have a chip, they won't stop firing. They'll pave this desert with hellfires until we're all ash. Miller stared at her, his eyes wild, the knife trembling an inch from Sterling's jugular. Slowly, he released his grip. Get Davis up, Kaia ordered. The drone is re-racking or switching targets. We have maybe 10 minutes before the next pass. Go where? Miller spat. We have no cover. Kaia pointed east, where the horizon was starting to bleed a pale, sickly gray. The salt flats. The Sabka. That's suicide, Miller said. It's 120 degrees out there when the sun hits. Without water? The salt crystals reflect heat, Kaia explained, hoisting the Barrett back onto her bruised shoulder. It creates thermal washout. The drone's sensors won't be able to distinguish our body heat from the ground. It's our only ghost cloak. 3 hours later, the sun was no longer a celestial body. It was a hammer. The Sabka stretched endlessly. a blinding white expanse of salt crust that crunched under their boots like broken bones. The heat shimmering off the surface created a watery distortion, twisting the horizon into impossible shapes. Kaia walked point. Her tongue felt like a piece of dry felt in her mouth. Her lips were already cracked. Behind her, Miller dragged Davis on a low, makeshift skid made from their tactical vests. Davis was awake now, muttering nonsense, hallucinating from the concussion and dehydration. "Water," Davis moaned. "Just a sip." "Save your breath, brother," Miller rasped. Sterling walked in the middle, tied to Kaia's belt by a length of paracord. He was sweating, his expensive suit stained with salt rings, but his eyes were alert. He watched Miller. He watched Kaia. "He's going to die, you know," Sterling whispered to Kaia. "Keep walking." "Davis, he has a subdural hematoma. I can see the pupil dilation from here. You're dragging a corpse, Kaia." "I said shut up." "You're doing it again," Sterling pressed, his voice like dry leaves skittering on pavement. "Trying to save the boy in Mosul, but you can't save everyone. Sometimes leadership is knowing who to cut loose." Kaia stopped. The heat waves danced in front of her. For a second, she saw a figure in the distance, small, holding a cell phone. The boy from Mosul. She blinked, and the figure vanished. Just a salt pillar. "Kaia," Miller called out. He had stopped dragging Davis. He was staring at her. "Why did we stop? Are we there?" Kaia looked at her GPS watch. It was dead. Battery drained or fried by the EMP of the blast. "We keep moving," Kaia said, forcing the words out, "until we hit the ruins on the far side." "There are no ruins," Miller said, his voice rising in panic. "It's just salt. We're walking in circles, Kaia. Look at the tracks." Kaia looked back. The wind was already erasing their footprints. "We aren't circling," Kaia lied. She had to hold the line. If she cracked, Miller would execute Sterling and then probably himself. "I see water," Davis mumbled, pointing a trembling hand to the north. "Blue water. A pool." "It's a mirage, Davis," Kaia said softly. "No, it's real." Davis tried to stand up, thrashing against the straps of the skid. "I'm going to the water." "Davis, stay down!" Miller shouted, wrestling him. "Let him go," Sterling said. Kaia spun around, aiming her pistol at Sterling's forehead. "One more word." "Look," Sterling nodded toward the water. Kaia squinted through the heat haze. It wasn't water. It was a shimmering distortion, yes. But in the middle of it, something black and solid was hovering. It wasn't the Reaper drone. It was too small, too low. It was a quadcopter, a commercial drone, modified. And it wasn't flying. It was hovering at eye level, 50 meters away, watching them. Attached to its underbelly was a speaker. A voice crackled out across the salt flats, distorted but clear enough to freeze the blood in Kaia's veins. "Chief Warrant Officer Thorne, please check your fire. We have a trade proposal." The drone buzzed forward, dropping a small plastic bottle. It landed in the salt with a heavy thud. Water. Cold, condensation-covered water. "One bottle," the voice from the drone said. "For the Chatita prisoner, give us Sterling, and we drop a case. Keep him, and you watch your friend die of thirst." Kaia looked at the bottle, then at Davis, whose lips were white and peeling, then at Miller, who was looking at the water with the desperate, feral hunger of a dying animal. "Don't do it, Kaia," Sterling warned, his voice losing its calm edge for the first time. "They poison the well. That's the oldest trick in the book." Miller let go of Davis. He stepped toward the bottle. Miller, hold, Kaia ordered. He's dying, Kaia, Miller screamed. It's water. We trade the suit. We save Davis. Isn't that the mission? Bring our boys home? Kaia raised her weapon, not at the drone, but between Miller and the bottle. It's a test, Miller, she said. But her own throat was screaming for that liquid. The drone hovered, its camera lens zooming in, broadcasting their moral collapse to someone, somewhere, sitting in an air-conditioned room. Tick-tock, Kaia, the speaker buzzed. The boy is thirsty. Don't touch it, Miller, Kaia warned, her voice rasping like sandpaper. She kept her pistol trained on the plastic bottle, sweating in the white salt. It's water, Kaia, Miller screamed, his eyes bloodshot, saliva drying at the corners of his mouth. Look at Davis. He's convulsing. We trade the suit. We drink. We live. It's simple math. It's not math, Kaia said, her finger tightening on the trigger. It's a mousetrap. The commercial quadcopter hovered 10 feet above the bottle, its camera lens rotating with a mechanical whir. The voice from the speaker buzzed again, impatient. Last chance, Thorne. Hydrate or die. Miller took a step forward. He dropped his rifle. He was broken. The warrior had left the building. Only a thirsty animal remained. I'm taking it, Miller sobbed, reaching for the bottle. No! Kaia didn't shoot Miller. She shifted her aim 3 inches to the right and fired. Crack! The 9mm round shattered the plastic bottle. Water exploded outward, a precious, glittering spray that soaked into the dry salt crust in seconds. No! Miller shrieked, falling to his knees and clawing at the wet salt, trying to lick the mud. What did you do? You crazy bitch! What did you do? Kaia didn't answer. She swung her pistol up and double-tapped the drone. Bang, bang. One shot sparked off the motor housing. The second punched through the battery. The drone whined, spun out of control, and smashed into the ground, its speaker emitting a dying screech. You killed us! Miller lunged at Kaia, grabbing her vest. You killed Davis! Kaia headbutted him. Hard. The sound of Kevlar helmet hitting bone was sickening. Miller collapsed backward, dazed. Look at the water, Miller! Kaia pointed at the wet salt patch. Look at it! Miller blinked, wiping blood from his nose. He looked. The wet salt was fizzing. A faint, acrid white smoke was rising from the mud. It wasn't water, Sterling said, staring at the patch with wide eyes. Liquid nitrogen? Or an acid compound? It was a thermal marker, Kaia said, checking the sky. A cold spot. In a desert this hot, a patch of freezing liquid stands out on a thermal sensor like a flare in a dark room. She grabbed Miller by his harness and hauled him up. They didn't want to trade. They wanted to mark a cold spot for the Reaper so it could drop a thermobaric warhead right on our heads without needing a laser lock. As if puncturing her sentence, a low, ominous rumble vibrated through the soles of their boots. The air pressure dropped. They're reacquiring, Kaia said. We have 60 seconds before the operator switches from auto-track to manual. Where do we hide? Miller looked around the flat, white emptiness. There's nothing. No rocks, no depressions. We don't hide behind anything. Kaia ripped open her thigh pouch. She pulled out a foil packet, a standard-issue survival mylar blanket. We hide under the heat. Dig, Kaia ordered, throwing herself onto the salt crust. Dig a trench, shallow and wide, now! She stabbed the hard salt with her knife, breaking the crust. Miller, realizing the reality of death was seconds away, joined in, using his helmet as a shovel. They dug frantically, tearing their fingernails, scraping out a depression barely deep enough for 3 bodies. Davis in the middle! Kaia commanded. They dragged the unconscious seal into the hole. Sterling crawled in next to him, his expensive suit now ruined rags. Kaia and Miller lay on the outsides. "Blanket up!" Kaia unfurled the gold and silver foil. It flapped violently in the hot wind. "Reflective side down," Kaia yelled. "We need to trap our body heat in, not reflect the sun out." They pulled the flimsy foil over themselves. Kaia grabbed handfuls of loose salt and threw it over the blanket, weighting it down, camouflaging the metallic shine. "Stay still," Kaia whispered into the darkness of their makeshift cocoon. "Don't move. Don't breathe deep. Become sand." Under the blanket, the heat was suffocating. The smell of unwashed bodies, blood, and fear was concentrated into a toxic cloud. Kaia pressed her face against the cool earth. Thrum! The sound of the Reaper drone passing overhead was a felt vibration. It was low. Hunting. Kaia imagined the sensor operator's screen in a trailer in Nevada. They would be looking for the white-hot glow of human bodies against the hot ground. But the mylar trapped the IR signature. The layer of salt on top matched the surrounding temperature. To the drone, they were just another patch of salt. Unless... Davis groaned. His body twitched. A seizure. "Hold him," Kaia hissed to Miller in the dark. "If he kicks the blanket off, we're pink mist." Miller pinned Davis's legs. Kaia clamped her hand over Davis's mouth. The young SEAL thrashed, his body burning up with fever. Kaia held him with a strength she didn't know she had. Tears mixed with the sweat on her face. "Please don't die. Please don't die." The drone circled. Once. Twice. Then the sound faded. Kaia didn't move. She counted to 500. "Are they gone?" Sterling whispered. "Wait," Kaia said. She lifted the corner of the blanket an inch. The sky was empty. The sun was dipping lower, turning the salt flats blood red. "Clear," Kaia exhaled, pushing the blanket off. They sat up, gasping for fresh air. They looked like ghosts rising from a grave, covered in white dust, eyes hollow. Miller looked at the sizzling patch where the water had been. Then he looked at Kaia. Miller started, his voice cracking. "I almost..." "Stow it," Kaia said, standing up on shaky legs. She checked her compass. "We have 4 hours of daylight left, and we just burned our only trick." She looked north. In the distance, shimmering through the haze, was a dark shape. Not a mirage. Geometric lines. "The village," Kaia said. "Step 8. "Is it friendly?" Sterling asked. Kaia checked the load in her pistol. "Nothing out here is friendly, Sterling, but they have water, and they have trucks." She reached down and hauled Davis up, draping his arm over her shoulder again. "Let's go steal one." The village of Almala smelled of goat dung, diesel fumes, and baking bread. To a starving, dehydrated team, it smelled like heaven. To Kaia, it smelled like a trap. They lay prone on a ridge overlooking the settlement, a cluster of 30 mud brick structures huddling around a central well. A single generator thrummed in the distance, powering floodlights around a large courtyard. "Target identified," Kaia whispered, her voice a dry rasp. "Courtyard, north side, Toyota Hilux. Looks like a DSHK mount on the back, but the gun is stripped." "Does it have keys?" Miller asked. He was lying next to Davis, who was now unconscious, his breathing shallow and rattling. "I'll find out," Kaia said. She checked her gear. She had 1 magazine left for the MK-18, 28 rounds. 7 rounds in her pistol. The Barrett was empty. She left the heavy rifle with Miller. It was a paperweight now. "Watch Sterling," Kaia ordered. "If he blinks wrong, put him to sleep." "I'll kill him if you're not back in 20. Miller muttered, his eyes dark. Kaia slipped into the shadows. Moving through the village was an exercise in noise discipline. Every piece of gravel sounded like a gunshot. Kaia moved with the rolling gait of a predator, keeping to the deepest shadows of the alleyways. She passed a window. Inside, a family was eating dinner. She saw a father, a mother, 3 children. Normalcy, just meters away from where she was hunting. The juxtaposition made her stomach turn. These people were living in a war zone, ignoring the monsters outside their door just to maintain sanity. She reached the courtyard wall. The generator. Noise masked the sound of her breathing. She peered around the corner. The Toyota was there. Tan, beat up, rusted wheel wells. But it was a machine that could move faster than a human. There was one guard. He wasn't an Ereshkigal operator. He wasn't wearing the high-speed plate carriers or the fast helmets. He was wearing jeans, a counterfeit Adidas t-shirt, and a checkered keffiyeh. He held an AK-47 lazily across his chest, leaning against the truck's hood, smoking a cigarette. He looked barely 18. A local kid, paid or coerced by the PMCs to watch the motor pool. Kaia froze. The image of the boy in Mosul flashed in her mind. Don't do it. Find another way. She scanned the perimeter. High walls. No other exit. The keys were likely on the guard or in the ignition. She couldn't sneak past him. She couldn't talk to him. He's a combatant, the ruthless part of her brain argued. He's holding a weapon in a hostile zone. He is an obstacle. He's a kid, the human part screamed. Kaia looked back toward the ridge where Davis was dying. She thought of the water the drone had dropped. She drew her knife. The blackened steel blade didn't reflect the floodlights. She picked up a small stone and tossed it against the tin roof of the shed opposite the truck. Clatter. The boy straightened up. He didn't raise his rifle instantly. He wasn't trained. He looked curious. He stepped away from the truck, walking toward the noise. Hassan? He called out softly. Kaia moved. She didn't run. She flowed. 3 silent steps. She grabbed him from behind. Left arm snake-wrapped around his neck, cutting off the carotid artery and the windpipe. Right hand drove the knife into the kidney. A precision strike to induce immediate shock and prevent a scream. The boy bucked violently. He tried to gasp, but Kaia's grip was iron. He dropped the AK-47. Kaia caught it with her foot before it hit the ground, lowering it silently. They locked eyes in the reflection of the truck's side mirror. She saw the terror in his brown eyes, the confusion. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a kid earning a paycheck. Kaia tightened the choke. She felt the life flutter in his chest like a trapped bird. She held him as he twitched. 1 second, 2 seconds. The fight left him. He went heavy. She lowered him to the dust. She didn't look at his face. She couldn't. She wiped the blade on his jeans and sheathed it. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a cold, self-loathing rage. Mosul is gone, she told herself. This is survival. She checked his pockets. No keys. She checked the truck ignition. The keys were dangling there, swaying slightly from the vibration of the generator. Kaia keyed her mic. Miller, bring the package. I have transport. Copy. Moving. She opened the driver's side door and climbed in. The interior smelled of stale tobacco and sweat. She checked the fuel gauge. Half a tank. Enough to get them 50 miles. She looked at the passenger seat. There was a canteen. Kaia grabbed it, unscrewed the cap, and sniffed. Water. Real water. She took a sip. It was warm and tasted of plastic, but it was the best thing she had ever tasted. She forced herself to stop after one swallow. Davis needed it more. A door opened across the courtyard. Kaia froze. A man stepped out. This one wasn't a local kid. He was big, wearing tactical pants and a black t-shirt with the Ereshkigal logo. He was carrying a crate of ammo. He looked at the truck. He looked at the empty spot where the guard should be. Then he looked at the dark shape of the boy's body lying in the dust behind the rear tire. He dropped the crate. His hand went to the radio on his shoulder. Kaia didn't wait. She raised the suppressed Mk-18 through the open window. Foot, 2 rounds to the chest. The man stumbled back, hitting the wall. He groaned, fumbling for his sidearm. Foot. 1 round to the head. He slid down the wall. "Miller, hurry up," Kaia hissed. "We are burned! I repeat, we are burned!" Lights in the barracks building flicked on. Shouts erupted in English and Arabic. Miller came crashing through the alleyway gate, carrying Davis over his shoulder like a sack of grain. Sterling was running ahead of them, his hands still bound. "Get in! Get in!" Kaia cranked the ignition. The diesel engine roared to life, shattering the night's silence. Miller threw Davis into the truck bed and vaulted in after him. Sterling scrambled into the passenger seat. "Go! Go!" Miller screamed, slapping the roof. Kaia slammed the truck into gear and floored it. The rear tires spun in the dust, finding traction, and the Hilux surged forward. Gunfire erupted from the barracks. Bullets pinged off the tailgate and shattered the side mirror. Kaia aimed for the wooden gate at the end of the courtyard. She didn't slow down. Crash. The gate splintered into kindling. They were out, careening into the dark desert night. But as Kaia checked the rearview mirror, she saw headlights flaring to life behind them. Not one set. 3. "They're pursuing!" Miller yelled from the back, struggling to set up the stolen AK-47 he had grabbed from the dead kid. Kaia gripped the wheel, her knuckles white. "Get on the radio, Sterling." "What radio?" Sterling shouted over the wind. "Yours is broken." "The truck's radio." Kaia pointed to the HF transceiver bolted to the dashboard. "It's a long-range unit. Find a frequency that isn't jammed." "And tell them what?" "Tell them," Kaia said, staring at the dust cloud rising behind them, "that we have the vice president's dirty laundry, and we're about to air it to the whole world." The desert floor was not smooth. It was a washboard of hardened clay and jagged rocks that hammered the suspension of the stolen Toyota Hilux. Every impact sent a shudder through the chassis that felt like the vehicle's skeleton was snapping. "Contact rear, 200 meters!" Miller screamed from the truck bed. The distinct thump, thump, thump of the DSHK heavy machine gun mounted on the lead pursuer's truck reverberated through the night. Tracers whipped past the cab, looking like angry red lasers. One smashed into the tailgate, sending a shower of sparks over Miller. Kaia fought the steering wheel. The truck drifted sideways through a sandbank, losing speed. She downshifted, forcing the engine to scream near the red line. "Sterling! The radio!" Kaia shouted. "Do we have a signal?" Sterling was braced against the dashboard, clutching the handset of the HF radio with one hand and his bleeding nose with the other. The glow of the radio display illuminated his terrified face. "I can't transmit the files!" Sterling yelled back. "This is a voice frequency, analog. You want to read binary code to them over the air? We need bandwidth. We need a downlink." "Find one." Kaia swerved hard to the right to avoid an RPG rocket that streaked out of the darkness, exploding harmlessly in the scrub brush to their left. "There's a relay station." Sterling tapped furiously on the ruggedized laptop he had salvaged from his briefcase. "Microwave tower. Ereshkigal uses it for their drone uplinks. It's on a mesa 6 miles north-northwest." 6 miles is a lifetime, Miller roared as a bullet shattered the rear windshield, showering the cab in safety glass. "Hold on!" Kaia slammed the brakes. It was a suicidal maneuver. At 60 miles per hour, hitting the brakes in soft sand should have rolled the truck. But Kaia pumped them, locking the wheels for a split second to throw up a massive, opaque wall of dust and sand behind them. She accelerated instantly. Behind them, the lead chase vehicle, blinded by the sudden brownout, didn't see the maneuver. They plowed into the dust cloud at full speed. Kaia watched in the side mirror as the enemy truck hit a hidden rock outcrop. The headlights cartwheeled into the sky as the vehicle flipped, rolling 3-4 times before exploding in a ball of fuel and ammunition. "Scratch one!" Miller cheered, his voice ragged. "Two left!" "Davis!" Kaia called out. "Check Davis!" "He's out cold, Kaia. We need to stop." "We stop at the tower," Kaia said, her eyes fixed on the red warning light on the dashboard. "Engine overheat." "Sterling, guide me in." The mesa rose out of the dark like a tombstone. At its peak, a lattice-work steel tower blinked with a red aviation warning light. A small concrete blockhouse sat at the base. Kaia drove the Hilux up the service road, the engine knocking violently. The radiator had taken a hit. Steam was hissing from the grill. "We're here," Kaia said, sliding the truck sideways to block the narrow access road. "Everyone out." Miller dragged Davis out of the truck bed. The young SEAL was limp, his breathing wet and jagged. "Get him inside," Kaia ordered. "Barricade the door. Sterling, you're with me on the terminal." They breached the blockhouse. It was unmanned, an automated relay node. Banks of servers hummed in the air-conditioned cool. It felt sterile, alien compared to the blood and grit outside. "Hook it up." Kaia shoved Sterling toward the main console. Sterling connected his laptop to the server port. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm bypassing the firewall. I'm bridging the connection to the commercial satellite network." "Miller, status!" Kaia yelled, moving to the window. "I've got eyes on the road," Miller called from the doorway. He had set up a defensive position behind the engine block of the truck. "They're holding back at the bottom of the hill. They're waiting for reinforcements." "They know we're cornered," Kaia muttered. "I'm in," Sterling said. A progress bar appeared on the screen. "Uploading, 0%. "What exactly are we uploading, Sterling?" Kaia asked, stepping closer. "If this is just your confession, they'll bury it. They'll call it a deep fake." "It's not just me," Sterling said. He opened a file folder on the screen. "It's the ledger, the chemical precursors, the payments, and the authorization for the cleanup of Team Viking." He clicked on a document. It expanded. Kaia read the header. Her blood ran cold. "Operation Palal Horse Authorization Level, Executive." At the bottom of the page, there was a digital signature. It wasn't a general. It wasn't the CIA director. It was the Vice President of the United States. "The VP," Kaia whispered. "He signed our death warrants?" "The chemical weapons were being sold to a faction he wants to destabilize," Sterling explained, his voice devoid of emotion. "A false flag operation to justify a new troop surge in the region. You and your team? You were just the delivery service. And you weren't supposed to survive the delivery." Kaia felt a nausea that had nothing to do with the heat. She had killed for this country. She had watched friends die for this country. And it was all a line item on a spreadsheet for a politician's re-election campaign. "Upload it," Kaia said. "All of it. Send it to the New York Times, the Washington Post, Al Jazeera, everyone. It's going to take time." Sterling pointed at the bar. 12%. "The encryption on the tunnel is heavy." "How much time?" 15 minutes. Maybe 20. Outside, a loudspeaker crackled to life. The voice echoed off the canyon walls. "Chief Warrant Officer Thorne, this is Commander Graves of Ereshkigal Group. We know you're in there." Kaia moved to the window. Down at the base of the hill, 3 armored personnel carriers had arrived. Troops were dismounting, not the ragtag team from the village. These were the heavy hitters, full tactical gear, night vision. "You have something that belongs to us," Graves continued. "Give us the drive and Sterling and you walk away. We have a chopper inbound, a flight out of here, full immunity." "He's lying," Miller shouted from behind the truck. "I know." Kaia keyed her radio, the local handheld she had taken from the dead contractor. "Graves, this is Thorne. I have a counteroffer." "Go ahead. Come and get it." Kaia turned to Sterling. "Keep typing. If that bar stops moving, I put a bullet in your spine." She walked over to Davis. He was lying on the cold concrete floor. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling tiles. "Kaia," he whispered. She knelt beside him. She took his hand. It was cold. I can hear the ocean." Davis smiled weakly. "San Diego, the waves." "Yeah, buddy," Kaia choked out. "We're almost there." Don't let them." Davis exhaled. A long, shuddering breath. And then he didn't inhale again. Kaia stared at him. The silence in the server room was deafening, broken only by the hum of the cooling fans and the click-clack of Sterling's keyboard. She closed Davis's eyes. She stood up. The grief didn't come. The tears didn't come. All that was left was a cold, hard vacuum. She picked up her MK-18. She checked the chamber. 1 round. She checked her last magazine. 12 rounds. She walked to the door where Miller was waiting. "Davis?" Miller asked, not looking back. "He's gone," Kaia said. Miller lowered his head for a second. His shoulders shook. Then he racked the bolt on his AK-47. 15 minutes, Miller said. "Let's make them pay for every second." Boom. The first RPG hit the side of the blockhouse, shaking dust from the rafters. The upload bar ticked to 18%. The siege had begun. The world inside the blockhouse was a storm of concrete dust and noise. Rat-tat-tat-tat. Miller was firing the stolen AK-47 in short, controlled bursts through the shattered window. Brass casings danced on the floor, mixing with the glass shards and Davis's cooling blood. "Suppressing!" Miller screamed, ducking as a hail of 5.56mm rounds chewed up the window frame. "They're leapfrogging. One team moves, one team fires. They're professional." Kaia knelt by the server racks, using the heavy metal casing as cover. She fired 2 rounds from her MK-18 through a ventilation slit. A shadow outside dropped. "Save your ammo!" Kaia yelled. "Pick your targets!" "I can't pick them if they're behind a wall of lead!" Miller roared. He slapped a fresh magazine into the AK, his last one. "How is that upload coming?" Kaia glanced at the laptop screen. The green bar was crawling with agonizing slowness. Upload. 42% estimated time. 08 minutes. 8 minutes! Kaia shouted. "We don't have 8 minutes!" Sterling cried out from under the ammo desk. He was curled up, hands over his head. "They're bringing up the heavy weapon. I hear the tracks." Through the roar of gunfire, a deeper mechanical growl vibrated the floor. The APC, a BTR-80, was pushing up the access road, using the burning wreck of the other truck as cover. Its 30mm autocannon spun up. "Get down!" Kaia tackled Sterling just as the wall exploded. Boom, boom, boom. The 30mm high-explosive incendiary, HEI rounds, punched through the cinderblock walls like they were made of wet cardboard. Computers shattered. Sparks showered down. The air turned instantly hot and toxic with the smell of ozone and burning plastic. Kaia coughed, waving the smoke away. Her ears were ringing so hard she felt nauseous. She looked at the screen. Upload, 58% connection unstable. The antenna, Sterling hacked, pointing at the display. They hit the cabling. We're losing packet loss. Fix it, Kaia ordered. She crawled to Miller's position. Miller was slumped against the wall, clutching his side. Blood was seeping through his fingers. Shrapnel. I'm good, Miller lied, gritting his teeth. Just a scratch, but we got a problem, Kaia. He pointed out the window. The BTR had stopped 50 meters away. It wasn't firing anymore. Behind it, a squad of 6 mercenaries was stacking up. They carried breach charges. They're done playing, Miller wheezed. They're going to breach and clear. Once they get to that door, it's over. Kaia looked at the heavy steel door. It was barricaded by the wreckage of their Hilux truck, but a breaching charge would blow it wide open. We need a force multiplier, Kaia said, checking her vest. She had 1 fragmentation grenade left. I can frag the door when they blow it. Not enough. Miller shook his head. He looked at the dead body of Davis in the corner. Then he looked at Kaia. His eyes were strangely calm. The truck, Miller said. The Hilux. The gas tank is still half full, and there are 2 jerry cans of diesel in the bed. So if that goes up, it creates a firewall. It blocks the entrance for 5, maybe 10 minutes. Long enough for the upload. We can't detonate it from here, Kaia said. We don't have the angle. Miller unclipped the last grenade from his belt. He pulled the pin, but kept the spoon depressed. I have the angle, he said softly. Kaia froze. No. Miller, no. Kaia. Miller stood up, wincing as his wound stretched. I'm bleeding out. I can feel the cold in my legs. I'm not walking out of this desert. We go together. Kaia grabbed his arm. That's the deal. Leave no man behind. The mission comes first, Miller corrected her. He gently removed her hand from his arm. You finish the upload. You make sure the world knows what they did to us. To Davis. To Ljungberg. He looked at the laptop. 65%. They're moving up, Sterling screamed. Miller turned to the window. He didn't look back at Kaia. Tell them, Miller said, his voice finding the old steel of a Team Viking operator. Tell them we gave them hell. He vaulted through the shattered window. Miller! Kaia screamed. She watched through the slit. Miller sprinted into the open, directly into the floodlights. He raised his AK-47 and fired blindly at the stack of mercenaries, drawing every gun to him. Contact! The mercenaries shouted. Bullets tore into Miller. His body jerked as he took hits to the chest, the legs, the shoulder, but he didn't fall. He kept running, fueled by pure, unadulterated rage. He reached the wreckage of the Hilux blocking the door. He didn't seek cover. He climbed onto the hood. The BTR gunner swung the turret toward him. Miller looked at the enemy squad just 10 meters away. He smiled. Blood coated his teeth. He released the spoon of the grenade and dropped it into the open gas tank of the truck. Viking! He roared. K-boom. The explosion was a miniature sun. The fuel tank, the jerry cans, and the grenade detonated simultaneously. A massive fireball engulfed the entrance, the truck, and the forward element of the mercenary squad. The shockwave blew Kaia backward against the server racks. The blast pressure popped the glass of the remaining monitors. Silence followed. A heavy, crackling silence broken only by the roar of the fire. Kaia lay on the floor, stunned. She couldn't hear. She couldn't breathe. She looked at the door. It was gone. In its place was a wall of raging inferno. Black smoke billowed in, choking the room, but no one was coming through that fire. She crawled to the laptop. The screen was cracked, but the display was still active. Upload, 89%. He did it, Sterling whispered, staring at the fire with awe. The crazy son of a bitch actually did it. Kaia didn't speak. She sat with her back to the server rack, her MK-18 in her lap, watching the progress bar. 95%. Tears cut tracks through the dust on her face. She didn't wipe them away. 98%. Outside, the BTR engine revved. It was backing up. The mercenaries were regrouping, waiting for the fire to die down. 100%. Upload complete. A message flashed on the screen. Data sent to 47 recipients. It's out, Sterling exhaled. CNN, BBC, The Hague, it's everywhere. Kaia stood up. She walked to the fire. The heat was blistering. She looked at the inferno where Miller had vanished. Thank you, she whispered. Then she turned to Sterling. The mission was done, but the survival part wasn't. Grab the drive, Kaia said, her voice dead. The fire won't last forever. And when it dies, Graves is going to come through those ashes to kill us. Where do we go? Sterling asked. There's nowhere left. Kaia looked at the ventilation hatch in the ceiling. Up, she said. To the roof. We have one last card to play. What card? Kaia checked the chamber of her rifle. The ghost shot. The roof of the blockhouse was a flat slab of concrete, baking in the residual heat of the day and the rising heat of the inferno below. Black smoke curled over the edge, stinging Kaia's eyes, but it provided the only cover she had. Stay low, Kaia rasped, pushing Sterling down behind a rusted HVAC unit. If you silhouette yourself against the stars, you're dead. She dragged the heavy drag bag containing the Barrett M-Rad across the gravel. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Her muscles were spasming, involuntary tremors caused by electrolyte depletion and emotional shock. She unzipped the bag. The rifle was dusty but functional. She extended the bipod legs and settled into the prone position, angling the barrel toward the valley floor below. What are you doing? Sterling whispered, his voice trembling. We need to signal a helicopter. We need to wave a white flag. There is no white flag, Sterling, Kaia said, pressing her eye to the scope. Graves isn't here to negotiate. He's here to erase. She dialed the magnification to 25x. The world narrowed down to a green-tinted circle. Below, the scene was chaotic. The mercenary squad was pulling back from the burning entrance. But further back, beyond the range of their carbines, vehicles were gathering. Kaia scanned. BTR-80, truck, command SUV, there, standing next to a black Land Rover, illuminated by the headlights of the support vehicles, was a man. He wasn't wearing body armor. He was wearing a tactical polo and a baseball cap, holding a satellite phone. He looked relaxed, arrogant. Got you, Kaia whispered. That's 2 miles away. Sterling squinted into the dark. You can't hit that. It's physics. It's impossible. 2,430 meters, Kaia corrected, reading the laser rangefinder. She pulled out her Kestrel weather meter. The little fan spun lazily, then whipped up. Wind, 12 mph, full value, left to right, gusting to 18. At this range, a bullet would take nearly 4 seconds to reach the target. In that time, gravity would drop the bullet over 100 feet, and the wind could push it 10 feet off course. And then there was the Coriolis effect, the rotation of the Earth itself moving the target while the bullet was in flight. Kaia opened her dope book. data on previous engagements. She ran the numbers in her head, fighting the fog of fatigue. Elevation, 28.5 mils up. Windage, 4.2 mils left. Spin drift, 0.3 mils right. She dialed the turrets. Click, click, click. The mechanical sound was comforting. It was order in chaos. She settled her cheek against the stock. The crosshair was dancing. It wasn't the wind. It was her. Her body was vibrating. The reticle jumped erratic circles around Graves's chest. "I can't hold it," she hissed through gritted teeth. "Damn it." "Kaia," Sterling said softly. "You're shaking." "I know." She closed her eyes. She thought of Miller burning in the stone doorway. She thought of Davis staring at the ceiling. She thought of Ljungberg bleeding out in the hall. Rage didn't steady her. Rage made it worse. She needed to be empty. The iceberg. "Sterling," Kaia said, not opening her eyes. "Put your hand on my shoulder." "What?" "Do it. Squeeze hard. Ground me." Sterling crawled forward and gripped her shoulder. The pressure was real. It connected her to the concrete. Kaia opened her eyes. The shake was still there, but it was rhythmic now. It was syncing with her pulse. Thump, jump, thump, jump. She couldn't stop the movement. She had to time it. She had to break the trigger at the exact millisecond of the pause between the systolic and diastolic beat of her dying heart. She exhaled. Halfway out. Hold. The crosshair swept past Graves. Thump. Wait. Thump. Wait. Graves turned. He was looking up at the mesa. He knew they were there, but he thought he was a god watching ants burn. Thump. Crack. The Barrett bucked violently, the muzzle brake venting gas to the sides, kicking up a cloud of dust. Kaia didn't blink. She rode the recoil, keeping her eye in the scope. "Shot out," she whispered. 1 second. The bullet was supersonic, screaming through the dark. 2 seconds. It began to slow, transitioning to subsonic, destabilizing slightly. 3 seconds. It arced downward, falling out of the sky like a meteor. Graves was still holding the phone. He laughed at something. 4 seconds. The top half of Graves' chest disintegrated. There was no sound of the hit at this distance, just the visual confirmation. One moment he was standing, the next he was thrown backward against the Land Rover as if hit by a sledgehammer. Pink mist sprayed across the windshield. "Impact," Kaia breathed. "Target down." "My God," Sterling gasped. Down in the valley, panic erupted. The mercenaries scrambled for cover, firing blindly at the hills. The coordination was gone. The head of the snake had been cut off. Kaia cycled the bolt. The massive brass casing clattered onto the roof. She didn't fire again. She didn't have to. "They're confused," Kaia said, collapsing the bipod. Her vision was blurring. She was done. The adrenaline dump left her feeling hollowed out. They'll freeze for 10 minutes, maybe 20. They don't know if it was a sniper or an airstrike. And then? Sterling asked. Kaia looked up at the sky. The eastern horizon was turning a bruised purple. Morning was coming. "And then they realized we're out of ammo," Kaia said. She sat up, leaning back against the HVAC unit. She pulled her sidearm. 1 magazine, 7 rounds. "We wait," Kaia said. "For death?" "No." Kaia pointed her pistol at the sky, where a faint, rhythmic beating sound was growing louder. Not a truck, not a drone. Rotors. "For the extraction," Kaia said, "or the execution squad, depending on who gets here first." The sound grew to a roar. A dark shape crested the mesa, blotting out the stars. A Black Hawk helicopter. No lights, no markings. It hovered over the roof, the wash from the rotors whipping up a storm of ash and smoke. A rope dropped. Kaia looked at Sterling. "Do you trust them?" Sterling shouted over the noise. Kaia stood up, swaying. "I don't trust anyone," she said, "but I'm out of bullets." She grabbed the rope. The rotor wash was a physical weight, pressing Kaia down against the HVAC unit. Dust and ash swirled in a blinding vortex. 4 figures fast roped down from the Blackhawk's belly. They hit the roof with the heavy metallic thud of boots on concrete. They moved with fluid, lethal precision. Multicam black uniforms. No unit patches, no flags. Their faces were covered by ballistic mandibles and dark visors. They looked like insects, soulless, hard-shelled, and efficient. "Friendly?" Sterling yelled, stumbling toward them, waving his hands. "We're here. We have the drive. The lead operator didn't offer a hand. He drove the butt of his rifle into Sterling's stomach. Sterling folded like a lawn chair. Before he hit the ground, 2 other operators were on him. Zip ties ratcheted tight around his wrists. A black hood was shoved roughly over his head. "Asset secured!" The team leader's voice crackled over an external speaker, amplified above the rotor noise. "Package is contained." Kaia didn't move. She stood in the shadow of the smoke plume, her hand resting on the grip of her pistol. Not rescue, she realized. Her heart slowing down to a cold, flat rhythm. Rendition. The data was out, yes. But the vice president couldn't afford witnesses who could testify in a hearing. Sterling was going to a black site. And Kaia? The team leader turned toward her. His visor reflected the burning orange glow from the fire below. He raised his rifle, not to shoot but to cover. "Thorne!" the voice boomed. "Drop the weapon! On your knees! Hands interlaced!" Kaia looked at the helicopter. The side door was open. A gunner sat there behind a minigun, tracking her. "I said on your knees!" The leader advanced, flanked by 2 operators. Kaia looked at the edge of the roof. Below, the inferno that Miller had ignited was still raging, spewing a curtain of thick, oily black smoke up the side of the wall. She looked back at the operators. If she went with them, she ceased to exist. She would become a redacted file in a basement in Langley. "Go to hell," Kaia mouthed. She didn't surrender. She didn't shoot. She sprinted. "Target running! Stop her!" Bullets sparked off the concrete at her heels. Kaia didn't weave. She ran straight for the edge of the roof, directly toward the column of rising smoke. She didn't hesitate. She threw herself off the ledge. "No!" the leader shouted. Kaia fell into the abyss. The heat was instantaneous and searing. For a terrifying second, she was weightless in the center of the firestorm. But she had calculated the drop. It wasn't a suicide jump. She hit the corrugated tin awning of the first-floor window, 10 feet down, obscured by the smoke. The metal buckled under her impact, absorbing the force. She rolled, coughing violently as the acrid smoke filled her lungs and dropped the remaining 6 feet to the sand. She was in the blind spot. The fire from the truck wreckage created a wall of thermal noise that would blind the helicopter's sensors. "Visual lost," she heard from the roof above. "She went into the fire. Check the perimeter." Kaia didn't wait. She scrambled on hands and knees, keeping low, moving away from the light, away from the noise, deeper into the jagged rocks of the mesa base. She found a crevice, a narrow split in the limestone caused by centuries of erosion, and squeezed inside. She pulled a tumbleweed over the opening and pressed herself into the dirt. Above, the helicopter spotlight swept the desert floor. The white beam cut through the night, hunting. It passed over her hiding spot once, twice. Then, the radio traffic echoed from the roof, faint but audible. Negative visual. No thermal signature. The body is likely in the structure fire. Copy that. We are bingo on fuel. Load the asset. We're dusting off. Kaia listened. She didn't breathe. The rotor pitch changed. The engine whined as it took on load. The Black Hawk lifted off, banking sharp to the west, carrying Sterling into a nightmare of indefinite detention. Then, silence returned to the desert. Kaia waited for an hour, then 2. When the sun finally crested the horizon, painting the sand in blood-red light, she pushed the tumbleweed aside and crawled out. She was covered in soot. Her uniform was shredded. She had no rifle, no radio, no water. She looked back at the ruined blockhouse. The fire had burned down to embers. Inside, the bodies of Miller and Davis were gone, consumed by the flames or buried under rubble. She checked her pocket. The USB drive with the copy of the data was gone, left in the laptop. It didn't matter. The world knew. The signal couldn't be stopped. Kaia Thorne, Chief Warrant Officer 2, was officially dead. The government would write the press release. Tragic training accident. Heroic sacrifice. She turned her back on the ruins. She looked east, toward the border, toward the unknown. She wasn't a soldier anymore. She wasn't a patriot. She was just a survivor in a world that wanted her dead. Kaia began to walk. She didn't limp. She didn't look back. She disappeared into the heat haze, a ghost in a land of ghosts. Location: Arlington National Cemetery, Virginia. Time: 3 weeks later. The rain in Washington was different from the rain in the desert. It was cold, polite, and smelled of wet wool and manicured grass. Vice President Charles Sterling, no relation to the traitor, stood at the podium, his black umbrella held by a Marine aide. Behind him, 3 flag-draped coffins sat in a perfect row. The media wall was a firing squad of lenses, capturing every somber micro-expression. "We live in a dangerous world," the vice president said, his voice thick with practiced gravitas. "And in that darkness, we rely on the quiet professionals. The men of Team Viking were not just soldiers. They were the shield." He paused. The cameras flashed. They died in a tragic training accident during a joint exercise, a helicopter malfunction, a twist of fate. But let us be clear, their sacrifice ensures our safety. He didn't mention the chemical weapons. He didn't mention the mercenaries. He didn't mention the private server in the relay station that had leaked 4 terabytes of encrypted data to The Guardian and Der Spiegel just 20 days ago. The scandal was raging on the internet. Hashtags, leaked documents, angry pundits. But in Washington, the spin machine was already working. Deep fakes, foreign disinformation, AI-generated hoaxes. The truth was out there, but it was drowning in noise. Location: unknown settlement, southern Turkey border. Time: the same moment. 5,000 miles away, the sun was setting over a dusty cafe. Flies buzzed around a plate of stale baklava. A figure sat in the corner, wrapped in a faded gray shawl. Her hands were rough, the knuckles scarred, the fingernails still rimmed with black grease that no amount of scrubbing could remove. On the wall, a small television blared the news via satellite. It showed the ceremony at Arlington. It showed the vice president placing a hand on the first coffin. Miller. The camera panned to the second. Davis. Then it panned to the third. An empty coffin. A symbolic marker for the lost at sea. Thorne. The figure in the corner watched for a long moment. She didn't blink. Her eyes were older now. They held the 1,000-yard stare of someone who had seen the math of the universe and didn't like the numbers. She reached into her pocket. She pulled out a single tarnished object, a dog tag. Miller, J. She ran her thumb over the embossed letters. The cafe owner walked by, wiping a table. He looked at the woman. She had appeared out of the desert 2 weeks ago, half dead, speaking perfect Arabic but with eyes like a wolf. "More tea?" the owner asked. The woman looked up. She looked at the TV screen one last time, where the vice president was saluting a lie. "No," Kaia whispered. Her voice was raspy, healed from the smoke but forever changed. She stood up, leaving a few crumpled bills on the table. She slipped the dog tag back into her pocket, right next to a small, stolen drive containing the original, unencrypted files. The insurance policy. "Where do you go now?" the owner asked. Kaia walked to the door. The wind was blowing from the east, carrying the scent of impending winter. "Nowhere," she said. "I'm already there." She stepped out into the twilight. She didn't walk like a soldier anymore. She walked like a ghost, and within seconds she was gone, swallowed by the shadows of a world that believed she was dead.